All right, guys. So we're gonna look at the head and arm. Okay, the mounted katagatame. So I've learned this move many different times throughout my career, and this is my favorite way to do it now. And there's other ways to do it. I'm not saying those are right or wrong. It's you kind of have to figure out how you like to do it. But there are some concepts that are, I think, common for all methods. Okay, so let's say I have mounted position. Okay, so I need to get the single chest wrap position. So we've been looking at pinning wrists, right? Using that cross wrist method that Gordon and John Danner talk about. We're pinning the wrist, and we're going to come underneath and control his wrist as a placeholder. This is going to allow us to slide our arm underneath, and now from here we can choose sort of what we want to do. Assuming he doesn't defend with the other hand, we have an underhook. So from the underhook, I'm going to look to straighten my arm, walk that elbow right up to the crown of his head. Okay, now when we get here, what we need to do is get our head to the other side of this arm. And I think a big mistake a lot of people will make is they'll come in and they'll try and push. But every time I do something like this, he can now open up his underhook and I can lose the arm. So I think it's important to keep this constant pressure coming forward and then block with my head. Now that I'm here, what I'm going to look to do is try to push everything inside the crook of my elbow. Okay. So I'm trying to push everything inside here. Now, I've also seen people push at the head. It's not wrong. For me, I always find more success pushing at the shoulder. And then I'm going to do that hand job movement. I'm going to be pushing him in and kipping my arm. So what this does is it steals this little gap in here. So I need to feel that solid connection of his neck into my elbow. So right now there's a gap there. I push him and I kip, and there it is. Now, for your head positioning, usually what I try and do is rule of thumb is ear to ear, head to the floor. So I'm here, my ear to ear, head to the floor, and then I can lock a palm to palm or a 10 finger. I usually go palm to palm. Okay, I'm not into this type of stuff because it narrows my base. So I want to have a wide base of support, so I flare my elbow out. Okay. Now here's probably the biggest mistake that everyone makes when they do this move is they think that the forward pressure is what they want. So they start driving their shoulder under their partner's jaw. So we're here, we lock up, and then we just start pushing forward into our partner's jaw. The problem with this though is that we miss the strangle altogether. So if we think about our partner's neck as to where we should be strangling, I don't want to be driving this way. For me, I always sink back, kind of like I'm doing a north-south choke. I want to attack the base of his neck. This is where I find uh, that like the gag reflexes. So I try and drop down and sink. So everything is about dropping my weight down, letting my body weight do the work. So as soon as I get here and I do my kip and I'm in position, I don't get excited and start driving into my partner's head. It will be uncomfortable, but they won't tap. Okay, so instead, what we usually do is I start sinking back. I like to sink back almost like I'm dropping my left shoulder to the floor. Also, should I dismount or not? It really is up to you. Okay. I'm not a big fan anymore of going full dismount, although you can get very powerful strangles from here. I'm more of a fan of either knee riding, so that when he tries to do the defense where he turns away, there's a wedge on his hip stopping him. Now, my favorite method is just sinking my right hip to the floor and keeping him in between my legs. So I'll just sink back. And now from here, I just use my body weight. So I'm not going to squeeze too much at all. I'm just going to hold and start dropping my left shoulder to his neck. I just hold. This is a long burn. This should take no longer, it shouldn't be any shorter than like 10 seconds. And it could go, as long as a minute or even longer. So to get that tap, all I did was I used my body weight. Okay, a couple other things I can do to make more pressure is as I go in, I get my kip, is I'm going to use my hand to roll my wrist. This actually gives me a lot of extra power just by rolling and throttling my wrist here. Okay, so when we're drilling this, I think the best way to do it is try to have zero tension in your arms while you're setting it up. And when you're finishing, we're going to have very little tension and see if we can just finish just with our body weight. Okay, so I'm here, I sag down. I'm thinking about sagging down and pushing my shoulder into Severio's neck, opening wide base of support. I start rolling my wrist, and then I just use my body weight here. My head is also driving into his head, and I'm just holding and just sort of allowing my body to do the strangle to get the tap. Okay? Think about this concept. When you set up your strangle, your arms should be completely relaxed so you can move and set your arms however you want. If you're tense, you won't be able to do that. Then, when it's time to finish, operate at a pace that only increases strangle pressure. So if I go in here and I get a position, I get excited, and I start squeezing really, really hard, and nothing's happening, and now I'm getting gassed out. This is not what I should be doing to get the strangle. It should be a gradual progression of tension in my arms that only increases. It never decreases. So think long term. Have your partner here. You're in such a good position. You're just going to hold it as long as you can. Okay. So again, I'm here. I kip. My head drops. Now I just sink down and back. Can you move me around a little bit? So I should be in base here. I drop my right hip. Now I'm just going to start rolling my wrist and just pushing my left shoulder down into my partner's neck. Just holding, not taking too long at all, and then just a gradual squeeze. Another thing I like to think about is taking my shoulder and putting it into the armpit. So if you aim for the armpit, you'll always sag back. I don't want to drive forward and crush my partner's head. So again, just from the top, hand fighting, I pin, come underneath. Now he's going to give me some resistance here. I open, walk. We get to single chest wrap. Now I'm going to keep my shoulder flared so I can move my head, and then I can use my hand to assist. From here, I lock my hands and I sink back. I'm going to try to, I feel that that I didn't need to do the kip, but from here, this would be a good time to do it. Now I just sag back and I hold. I roll my wrists and I just start gently pushing Severio's head into the strangle as I drop my left shoulder down. Okay, so we should be getting finishes without really squeezing too hard at all. That's the ideal goal. Questions on this? That's it. Let's get some reps. Ready? 1, 2.